Hey there, believers. I got a great episode for you this week. Today, I'm bringing back on Tim Constantine. Uh, I had him on a few weeks ago, or I was on his show. I'm sorry. I was on his show the other day, and I have had him on before, but he's a great guest, um, wonderful guy. And today, we're going to be digging into CERN. You might be familiar with his show. He has the Sixth Sensory podcast. It's a lot of fun. He covers a wide range of topics, but it's a really good show. But we had talked last time he was on here. Um, we talked about we touched on CERN, and he's like, "Man, I could do a whole episode." And so that's what we're doing. We're doing a whole episode on CERN. Who knows where else it'll go? Much like most shows, it kind of starts off with an idea and just takes off from there. The show isn't scripted or anything like that, so you could probably tell. Um, yeah, so it'll be a good time. Hopefully, you'll take something away from it. I know I'll be learning because I don't know a whole lot about it except for rumors. But if you have an experience or a story that you would like to share or a certain topic, holler at me. The email address is thebumppodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. And for those of you watching on YouTube or TikTok, please welcome my new co-host, Gnarls Buckley. He'll be hanging around for a while. He don't have a whole lot to say, but he is um, the newest addition to the set here, I guess you'd call it, to the studio. I absolutely love that buck. And I call him Gnarls because if you would get closer to uh, the center of his rack, it is insane how many points and stuff are on there. A non-typical buck. I love to hunt, and I've waited a long time. It wasn't that long as far as taxidermy goes. It was like 6 months, but I've waited a long time to have him in the house with me, and I'm thrilled to share him with you. Hopefully, he'll have a partner in crime hanging beside him soon, in about this time next year. All right. Uh, Thank you guys for all the love and support. There's been people that's decided to help donate and help out the show with that. Um, if you feel led to do so, it's buymeacoffee.com/ the bump podcast. Let's see what else. I think it's about it. Everything's going good. I have some big episodes that we've went through, and we got more coming. And my camera just kicked off. Okay, speaking of supporting the show, it looks like that's probably the end for that camera. It's lasted me about a season. Let me see if I can fix it, and I'll bring it back on. Otherwise, you'll be looking at the logo a lot. All right, we'll go ahead and bring back. We'll bring on Tim as I get this fixed. Well, isn't that inconvenient? It looks like the camera it's done. It's big black screen, big hunk of plastic and glass now. All right. Um, Man, that's unfortunate because I just used the last healthy donation. Big shout out to Micah and Patricia. They sponsored the show a little there, and I got this nice new microphone. It looks like we might have to wait until tax return or something to sink it into investing in a better camera. I thought I had a good one. Oh well, let's stop my mouth. We'll bring on Tim. All right, we're on. How's it going, brother?
Good. It's good to be here again. Thanks for having me back on.
Man,
I should tell people too, we just got off of an epic conversation last week, I guess, or 2 weeks ago,
yeah,
when you came on my show, and I haven't put it out yet, but man, we got into some stuff deep.
yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it, man. And
Hmm.
the way this lines up, they might drop at the same time or
Hmm.
right around the same time because I got a couple of shows, and then this is like in 2 or 3 weeks this one will drop, so it'll be very close in time.
Yeah, that'll be cool because it's not going to be the same show at
Right.
all. Like people can get totally different content from our show we just did that's different from this one, I think.
Yeah.
But they might work it out to where they have like similar I don't know, thoughts or narratives or something like that.
Yeah.
Similarities.
Yeah, it's a good time, man. And I loved coming on your show, dude. Like anytime if you want to talk about whatever, because like we come on and it was like, so what do you want to talk about? I don't know. What do you, it don't matter to me. What do you want to talk about? And it just turned into a great conversation, man. I loved it, dude.
Yeah. Just that was a good one, just to see how we kind of progressed our way into the conversation that we did end up having. And it was a good combination of my research with your research.
Yeah, man.
And there's so many similarities. It's like, and what was cool about it is some of the stuff that I've found in studying the history of Ishtar, it has bumped me into looking at Lilith some as well, just here and there. Like they're so similar.
Yep.
They're both in that Epic of Gilgamesh. They both, from what I could tell, go back to the Sumerians, which is like one of our oldest cultures. So it's crazy to see how early people, like some people would say Sumeria was the first empire.
Hmm.
Those people believed in these entities, and they believed that they pre-existed, or what am I trying to say here? They existed before humans did.
Right.
So we're talking about these primordial goddesses, and it's cool because I don't see a lot of talk with this within, maybe the Christian realm. Some people are maybe doing it, but I don't see it a lot. It's like, but because you hear about God, you hear about the devil, and you hear about fallen angels, but what about all the other stuff? What
Right.
about the primordial goddesses? So that's, before I go too deep into that, because it's not, we already did that show. That's a little teaser for people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. It was a great conversation, man. It was a great topic of discussion that we got into. And I don't want to jump too far ahead into our conversation, but there's another goddess that we're going to discuss today. I imagine at some point, right? That's
Yeah.
Shiva.
Hmm.
Now, is she connected to Ishtar as well, or is she like a standalone? Because she's more of like a death and destruction
Hmm.
kind of
I,
goddess, right?
I haven't found direct connections, but some of these entities may have been in cahoots in some type of way. One of the things that I do see is this androgynous element.
Hmm.
Ishtar has an androgynous element, like certain, there was, maybe it was the Assyrians, they had her listed under the male gods and the female gods,
Wow.
Ishtar. And I think that the same is true for Shiva. She has a female and a male counterpart.
Okay.
Now, that's a little funky. That's a little weird. It sounds like I'm trying to maybe talk trans and I'm not trying to do that. I'm still
Right.
trying to wrap my head around this. But what I'll say is that I think these being little G gods, they're not us. So maybe they have some sort of both going on,
Right.
or they're neither. Maybe they're just neither male or female. So they can, when they come into this realm, they can choose.
Yeah.
Something like that's happening there.
Yeah.
So I would say that in that regard, I see that with Shiva, and I see it with Ishtar for sure.
And I think to a certain degree, they don't care how you view them as long as you worship them.
That's right.
You know, and you get some of that androgynous or he and she kind of going on with the Baphomet.
Yes.
That's so it's all throughout a lot of these demons or little g gods or whatever people want to refer to them as.
Yeah, it does. And with Baphomet, that's where I see, and I didn't make this connection. It's been made centuries ago by Eliphas Levi. He made a connection between Lilith and Baphomet.
Mm,
He had the Hebrew word for Lilith on the Baphomet symbol. He also had a male Hebrew, Samael.
mm,
So in some kind of a way, they were trying to represent male and female aspects of Baphomet.
yeah,
And it's up to, I guess it's out there for the decoding as to why.
right.
But a lot of these guys were supposedly early Christians. or Christian mystics or something like that.
Yeah. Uh,
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot. It gets weird. See, that's the thing when you get into this man woman talk, especially as it pertains to these entities. It gets weird, man.
It does.
But I think the main thing to remember is that they're not us. So we can't think about them in our terms necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, this CERN stuff, and I'll probably just build my way up to it, but
Yeah,
it
man.
gets into these little G gods in a big way. In fact, like I told you, I got a lot of stuff here. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to fit it all in.
Right.
You know, we're just gonna start going through it and we'll get where we get. But I do want to say, I was going to tell you, I forgot to tell you before we started recording that just don't let me forget to get to the little G God connection with this.
You got it. I'll write it down. I'll put that on my notes here.
If for some weird reason we get to like, and we got only 15 minutes left before you got to hop off and we haven't got it, just remind me.
Yeah,
But
you got it,
I
man.
think I'll get to
I'm
it.
sure you will. I'm sure you will. Now, like I warned you, man, I haven't done any additional research about CERN. So whatever's in the vault here is just like what I remember from seeing, stuff here and there. I've seen some freaky stuff, but I look forward to hearing some deep dives and explanations of things. So
It
I'm all
might
about it, man.
it might work out too that you didn't, brush up maybe a little bit on CERN as we know it, because what I'm trying to do with this today, what I found with this research that I've done here is that it's a lot of stuff that hasn't been talked about. It's a lot of stuff that's not really out there.
Yeah,
It is. It's out there in the fact that it exists, but it's really hard to find. So, I mean, for starters, I think with CERN, of course, this is a subject that a lot of people have covered in this space, but I think that maybe some things have been missed, and I think maybe I've got some stuff people haven't heard, so
wait, let's
maybe
do
it
it,
works
man.
out,
That's exciting, man. Exciting.
Yeah. It's a big topic too. Um, CERN and just its sphere of influence is I think more relevant and more connected to us now than we probably realize. Uh, for starters, the internet comes out of CERN. What we're doing right here
Yeah.
came from CERN, essentially, in a weird way.
Wow.
And
So
if you think about it, the internet has integrated with everything that we do because you can't do anything without a smartphone or an online banking account or just any kind of internet access. You
right,
can't get hired without this stuff.
right. Yeah,
So
it's
it's,
weird. It's weird how fast internet became part of life. I
mhm.
was born in 1980. So, and I live in Southern West Virginia. So, internet wasn't really like a thing for us until I remember it. 1993 is when my dad got a computer and he thought he was on the cutting edge of technology, man. He said he had a Tandy, I think it was. And he bought all this extra, RAM or whatever. And I remember him saying, "This computer has 1 gigabyte of memory. You will never in your lifetime use up 1 gigabyte of memory." And now, like, this conversation is going to be like a 13
Yeah.
gigabyte. You know
Yeah,
what
this
I
will
mean?
probably be at least 8.
Yeah. So,
That's he was early on then.
yeah.
We didn't get the family computer until 96 or 97.
Yeah. Yeah. My
And it
dad worked for
goes,
NSA. He was all about the tech stuff, man.
I had an uncle that worked for IBM and he had an early model. Of course, those things weighed, more than I do, probably. That you had to oh, when it's all said and done, you had to have a couple people to help you carry this stuff in the house.
Yeah,
But
man.
kids these days they don't realize that you had this big, huge box. And then you had a huge or tower, and that
Yeah, the
thing
tower.
was heavy. So there's a lot of equipment.
Yeah, man.
But it goes back to this guy, Tim Berners-Lee, who worked at CERN. And I think it was 89 when he rolled it out. I think. I think that was, I should know that for this conversation, but I'm blanking on the date. But a guy named, people can look it up. Guy's name was Tim Berners-Lee. He worked at CERN. He developed www, HTTP, and all that first, and they rolled it out first from CERN. So so as it pertains to this conversation, it's like the place who has the particle collider
Yeah.
also rolls out the internet. And and that was like the European rollout. A couple years later, um, there was a place over here in California called SLAC, SLAC. It's another one of these acronyms. They have a particle collider. They're another version of CERN. They rolled out the internet here
Hmm.
in America. So the places with the particle colliders rolled out the internet.
Wow. I see. That's
That's why this is more relevant than is being talked about.
yeah. So we're all being affected by this CERN thing.
Yeah. And I think people too are taking this technology for granted. And I'm guilty of that too, because well, first of all, we don't know where it comes from. Most people don't. But if you do, you forget that this is very unusual
Hmm.
that we have access. There's this big tech driven technocratic drama being played out, and CERN is at the helm and has been since the early 50s. So everything we're seeing today has been affected by this, and CERN's involved.
Yeah.
But it goes back to the war, World War II, but it goes back to the 40s where you have this mysterious, unprecedented, these leaps in technology that we're
Hmm.
still trying to figure out. We don't know why the Nazis became as advanced. We don't know where they got half of this stuff. So
Right.
there's this constant mystery to this. But this is what I don't hear talked about. Well, one of the things, and that's that the Nazis were involved with the rollout of this technology. It's just like they're involved with just about all the rollouts of technology that we use today. Even the TV. I think the first TV was 1936 in the Olympics in Germany, in Berlin.
Yeah.
Hitler rolled that out. There was a German dude who made that TV, but yeah, the tech for CERN as well comes out of Nazi Germany, and this is not discussed.
Right.
Period.
Oh yeah. Of course not.
Um, from what I can tell, CERN was at least in part founded on the back of Nazi discoveries. So I looked into this. Basically, CERN kind of starts in Paris in 1951. They're using Nazi research, okay? And its research is focused on nuclear stuff from the Nazis. They're trying to perpetuate the Nazi nuclear research and do something with it. Then in 1952, they bring in Rolf Weiderow. He's the guy who developed the particle collider for the Nazis. He's a Nazi scientist. Then they say they officially started in 1954. So if you look at Wikipedia, CERN says we started in 54. How did and you look into Rolf Weiderow, the Nazi scientist, he says he went to work for CERN in 52. So there's some missing time here where
Yeah.
they were dealing with CERN's true origins go back before 1954. They go all the way back to 1943 when this guy developed the particle collider for the Nazis. But they like to say, no, we started it in Geneva in 54 because they
Uh-huh.
don't want to acknowledge this Nazi connection.
Now, what were the Nazis hoping to come up with a particle collider?
See, the mystery. It's a mystery to me. I need to order this guy put out a book. Wolf Rider, he put out a book, and I need to order it, and I need to get in there and look for answers. Um, I think that they were probably interested in the extra dimensional components of this, blasting open dimensions. Um, this gets really weird, but they were very interested in occult the occult application of scientific technologies.
Yeah.
You see it in the Huska Castle story.
Hmm.
Um, and by the way, everyone, listen, I found all this because I researched Nazi occultism. That's how I found out about Rolf and the CERN connection and all this.
Wow.
But one of the things I discovered was that the Nazis They found this location in the Czech Republic. It's called Huska Castle. It's built on what the locals say is a bottomless pit into the earth. Or some people call it the pit to hell, and all that vernacular gets tossed in there. When you look at local folklore of the place, for centuries, farmers in the area have been talking about at night creatures, Mothman type things start flying out of this hole. So somebody with some money, some royal dude, comes in there and builds a castle right on top of the hole. And that's kind of shrouded in mystery too, but they block the hole, put the castle there. The Nazis find out about it in the 40s. They go up there, they roll up with all this occult literature, and they start doing rituals there because of the hole, because of the folklore associated with it. So it's this occult application of scientific technology that they're interested in. And that's true. Like when the Nazis rolled out of Huska Castle, they left an entire occult library there. So we know they were doing stuff there with that.
Right.
So I just have to wonder. I'll just toss this in now. I'll get to this probably later, but CERN sits basically on a temple to Apollo. The Romans put it there. The Romans said there was a pit there, a bottomless pit. So, with this Nazi connection to CERN, I have to ask myself, did the Nazis know about this pit as well? And is that why CERN ended up where it ended up?
Right.
So,
yeah, because I've heard that CERN is built on Pergamum or something like that. That there's some kind of hellish connection, demonic connection to CERN right off the bat.
Yeah, it goes back to these old gods too, big time, because of Apollo, the temple to Apollo. Gary Wayne has actually suggested that Apollo, or Apollyon, the god, is the Greek counterpart of the Hindu god Shiva.
Wow.
So, and we know CERN has that statue of Shiva out there.
Yeah.
And they also have the old temple to Apollo there. So if that's the same god, that's pretty significant.
Yes, it is.
That would indicate that somebody knew what they were doing when they put CERN where they put it.
Yep.
And the Nazis were clued into this stuff. So I just wouldn't be surprised if the location was scouted out and, picked for a purpose.
Is that the dimension they're trying to open up? Or are they trying to bring Apollo or Apollyon now? Or for the last 80 years?
The more you look into this stuff, the more stuff I present today, I think it points to there being some sort of knowledge of that.
Yeah.
I don't know if the people there working there are consciously trying to do that, but I think maybe behind the scenes, you have shadowy figures who run these places.
Yeah, man.
Maybe people high up in the hierarchy of CERN leadership. They might be trying to do this, or they might not be, or maybe they're being used. But when you look at Revelation 9:11, where it spells out that this is Apollo coming out of a pit in the ground, it makes you wonder.
Yeah.
That verse fits this site better than any other site on the planet. So are they, and there's just this dense history here because it goes back to the 40s. So it's like, you would think that they would have figured it out by now too, that there are biblical connections there, whether they like it or not. They're certainly there. And there's another place that uses this technology. I got to throw this in because it's in our neck of the woods. Going back to the 40s, you've got Oak Ridge. They've got a particle collider there.
Yeah.
I would say that they're the CERN prototype for our area.
Yeah.
And it's just a hair older than CERN, but it comes out of World War II as well. And there's some bizarre stories that come out of that place.
Yeah. Man, this is already good.
Well, I had to sprinkle in Oak Ridge because the weirdest stuff happening in Appalachia, in Tennessee, that I know of it in recent years is Oak Ridge. And I mean, I think you might be privy to this. Your listeners probably privy to this too. There's that Tony Merkel story about Oak Ridge.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I'll do my best to kind of give people, tell people what I'm talking about here. I think it goes that Tony was at a cookout, and this is right after he moved to East Tennessee. So he lives in the area. So there's people from Oak Ridge from that facility at this cookout. And one of the guys, not knowing that Tony does like a paranormal podcast, tells him that his job, he's like an ex-military guy, and he says he's employed at CERN to stop things from coming out of portals or something like that.
Yeah, man.
So that's that's something I see. That's an element to this too that's undeniable. Like the more I got into research and CERN, the more I realized it's people at that work at these places who are telling the stories. It's not just internet rumor.
Right.
It's coming from the people that work there.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
coming from some guy in a basement online.
Right. Yeah. It's not like creepy pasta kind of stuff. This is
No, it if you trace all the weird stories about CERN and Oak Ridge, trace their origins, a lot of them go directly back to somebody who works there or knows somebody who works there.
man.
I just thought that Tony Merkel story was wild.
It is.
I
It
think he
is wild.
followed up on it too. And like he's apparently he ran into the guy again. I don't want to tell Tony's story here,
Right.
but this is so weird. I've got to at least talk about it. Apparently he ran into the guy again and the guy confirmed it. Maybe the guy had a couple beers on him the first
Yeah.
time, but later he still said no, that's the case.
It's accurate. Hey, why can't I run into those kind of people at a barbecue, man?
That's
You
what I'm
know,
saying.
people I talk to like want me to point them to the potato salad or something. You know,
I know.
I don't
I
get
know.
anything like that.
I know it's happens to me too. I stumbled on this crazy story a couple months ago from this guy. I ran into this guy in Nashville at a songwriter thing, and we ended up talking about ancient pyramids and civilizations and all the fun stuff. And I can't for the life of me get this guy on, and he's got some information on some stuff that is massive. And I'm gonna let him come on and tell it if he ever will, but I can't get him to come on, man.
Man,
So
that's how it goes, man. I got a dear friend, and I'm sure he'll listen to this episode. I've been waiting for like a year for him to come on and tell his testimony because it is the wildest but totally believable testimony that I've ever heard in my life about his come to
Mhm.
Christ from Satanism. And
Mhm.
it's so intriguing, but he won't do it. He won't do it.
All right. Well, if he's listening, we're rooting for you, buddy. Get on the Bump podcast.
That's right.
Just go
Absolutely.
with it. Let the Lord work it out. Just go with it.
That's it.
Um, so you know, I've been listening to the confessionals for a while. I've been listening to your show for a while. And every now and then we get these Oak Ridge stories. So they've always been in the back of my mind. But it didn't really it didn't really solidify for me until I started looking into this and I started finding these weird articles online. I've got one here that I gotta pull this up and read it. This is an article about Oak Ridge, and I'm gonna segue back into CERN in a second, but uh, this is NBC News put this article out in 2019. It says at Oak Ridge National Laboratory in eastern Tennessee, physicist Leah Broussard is trying to open a portal to a parallel universe. In a series of experiments she plans to run at Oak Ridge this summer, Broussard will send a beam of subatomic particles down a 50-foot tunnel past a powerful magnet and into an impenetrable wall. If the setup is just right and if the universe cooperates, some of those particles will transform into mirror image versions of themselves,
Hmm.
allowing them to tunnel right through the wall. And if that happens, Broussard will have uncovered evidence of a mirror world right alongside of our own. And there's another part, but I want to stop for a second and say some of the this is what science does. They confuse people with the way they word things. When they're talking about these particles tunneling through walls, they're not boring through walls. They're passing through walls like a ghost.
Mm.
They're doing something that we can't explain. Now in NBC News, they're not going to use the words magic or ghost or anything paranormal. They're going to try to explain this in a scientific way. But I just want people to know that's what they're describing here. Einstein talked about spooky action at a distance. He called it spooky for a reason. It's weird. There's a magical component to this. But this goes on, and I'll finish it up with this. Um, Broussard, the physicist there, says the mirror world, assuming it exists, would have its own laws of mirror physics and its own mirror history, mirror atoms and rocks, maybe even mirror planets and stars. Collectively, they would form an entire shadow world
Hmm.
as real as our own, but almost completely cut off from us. And that article immediately reminded me of Stranger Things.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought too when you said that.
And immediately clued me in that, okay, there's something here.
Yeah.
This isn't just internet rumor.
Yeah.
It's this, it's not just podcast talk, which I love. There's something more here. So I went and I wanted to see what the physicist at CERN was saying.
Yeah, man.
So I found some online lectures of his. I listened to him on YouTube, and it's the same material, man. He's talking about how to open and travel in black holes, extra dimensions, and it's the same stuff. They're doing the same experience. Oak Ridge and CERN are, and they're in cahoots. They're on top of this technology. They're the two places. There's a couple others. I talked about Slack, and there's Brookhaven, and there's a couple other places that have particle colliders, but CERN and Oak Ridge, something. It's almost like they're, you know, brother sister companies or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. They're doing the same stuff. And here's the thing. They're also talking about merging this with AI. This goes back to our conversation before you hit record. They're going to combine AI with particle physics. So we have that in the mix. So this is a true witch's cauldron. You have physicists saying this. You have particle colliders there. These are government facilities. You've got AI in the mix, and I don't hear this talked about much. You have D-wave computing involved, and all that stuff's working in tandem.
Yeah. No.
We know AI is going to be weird, but the D-wave component to this is equally as weird because these are the computers that they're using at CERN. They're using them at NASA and apparently the CIA as well. But CERN's definitely using them. And this is where it gets interesting because when you look into the guy who founded the D-Wave computer, he doesn't hold back. I listen to his stuff online too. This is where it gets very interesting. His name is Gordy Rose. He does these TED Talk like tech get ups, right? Like where there's a bunch of tech dudes in a room and he's doing these talks. It's basically he does a bunch of knockoff TED Talks
Right.
and with tech people and people, this guy's people think Elon is different. This guy is
Hmm.
different. Um, he said that he describes in one of the lectures he's describing the actual D-Wave computer and he says it looks like a black monolith and it's got a chip in there that reaches into another dimension and interacts with the shadow there and then like basically like feeds information back to us. So it's the same language that Leah Broussard from Oak Ridge is using in that NBC article, shadow realm.
Yeah.
So you're getting it from the D-Wave computers as well.
No, I I'm sorry for being so behind the curve here. What is D wave? Does it mean like dark wave? Is it like a
Basically, I mean, no, I don't actually know what the D stands for. It's the the black monolith part, which is crazy,
Yeah.
weird literary language for him to use. It's dramatic for him, but it does. It looks like, black monoliths. We see that in like 2001: Space Odyssey,
Yeah,
right? Like
man.
it's already sci-fi with the way he's describing it. But what the black monolith does, it's an encasing that allows for the temperatures inside the computer to be extra cold,
Yeah.
super cold, like levels of or degrees of cold that you can't get from a freezer or from a regular refrigerator.
Right.
It gets the conditions in there just right to facilitate a chip, a computer chip.
Yeah.
And the chips are what he says. He literally says they're summoning entities with the chips. He was talking about this. So that's what it does. And the chips, people have likened the chips to sigils in magic because they look like
Yeah, man.
old magic sigil. The chips is where, again, science won't put it out this way with their terminology. They'll make it sound like they understand. The chips are where the magic happens, literal magic. It's like, Tripoli says it all the time, like this is hardwired mysticism.
Yep.
I love that
Yep.
because I think you can sit there and analyze, you can read all the articles you want on how a computer chip works. And there's a point, if you're being honest, that you'll get to where you'll say, okay, something here is happening that we just quite don't understand. There's some sort of magic involved. And that's this guy in his talks. He basically acknowledges that, and he takes it a step further. He said that the chip reaching out to these entities or these shadows, he used both words, by the way. He says it's like what Lovecraft talked about in his novels, that he used a word called cosmicism. He likened it to this. He said these entities have a massive intelligence and they have a cosmic indifference towards us.
That's
So here's the quote. I got it right here. He said, "These things that we are summoning into the world now are not demons. They are more like the Lovecraftian old ones. They are not entities that are necessarily going to be aligned with what we want." And he said it straight up. It's on YouTube. It's in a TED Talk thing. And
wow.
why exactly? He went on to say too about these entities. He's like, this is coming, and there's nothing we could do about it. It's basically here. He said they're going to be a tsunami that might take us all out. So, and in that particular lecture, he finished that up by saying, "We are hiring people right now to see if we can make this happen." And that was the scariest part to me because uh, he didn't clarify or recorrect himself. He didn't clarify what he meant by "stop this from happening." He said actually he said make this happen. We're going to try to make this happen,
Yeah.
and he just left it at that. So I thought that was weird.
That's something else Sam Tripoli says. These nerds need a girlfriend. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Give them
man.
something to distract them.
Yeah, these
You
nerd
know?
dorks are going to ruin the world.
Yeah, man. What in the world are they doing?
That's why I like this guy in a weird kind of way. This gore because I like him for research purposes because he lets things slip.
Yeah.
He's not like he's saying stuff that Obama would never have said or Zuckerberg or Elon Musk. He's just letting things slip.
Yeah. Confident, man. Bold.
Hmm.
Or
Honest,
yeah, or honest.
honest.
My goodness. So
And they won't come out against him. There's no rebuttal to anything he said. Nobody from that I've found from the science realm has or the tech realm has come up and said, "Oh, he didn't mean what he said." They just leave him alone. I mean, he's got contracts with NASA, he's got contracts with the CIA, and he's got contracts with CERN. They're all using his D wave model. So they just they're not even taking it down off YouTube either. It's I'm just telling people it's out there. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's out there for people to find. It's just out there for people who have I guess the eyes to see it.
Now,
Um,
has he mentioned what his end game is? Like these things are coming
that's
out that we might not want, that they're indifferent to us. And these are like the old ones.
and maybe I think I confused. I said this in a confusing way when he said Well, I'm asking myself the same question too, Bo. But what he said was we're hiring people right now to try and make this happen.
Yeah.
And then he leaves it at that. So I don't know what that means. I don't know what he's trying to do. It sounds like he's like acknowledging that this is just what it is and that this is happening and we're on the train and we're going into this tunnel whether we like it or not. And
Don't
we
you feel
might
like
as
it?
well, I don't know,
Couldn't we
work
stop
with
the train?
them or
Couldn't we stop the train? Like,
Mhm.
couldn't we just quit messing with that? You know,
Mhm.
uh, maybe this has to happen prophetically, in order to get to Revelation 9:11. Um,
There's just all this weird stuff with this stuff. And like when I came across that, I just thought it was interesting that they used that word Lovecraftian because that's a word that's used to describe the weird video footage that came out of CERN. I don't know if you saw this, but somebody a couple years ago filmed a ritual right
yes,
there at the statue of Shiva.
yes,
And it's like this Gordy Rose thing where they left everybody hanging. They never really put out a statement on this. Nobody knows if that was real or if they say it was a hoax, but they've gone back on it a couple times. It's just it's weird. I don't know if you've seen it, but like
I saw a ritual that was supposedly done like maybe under CERN or not under CERN, but like it looked like it was done in like an underground bunker, like an underground storage area or something, where they had this procession and people dressed like demonic figures and a bunch of people dressed in white. And I don't know if that was in front of the Shiva statue or what, or if that maybe that was something unrelated and people just hashtag CERN on it.
yeah.
But
This one I found the footage. It's on YouTube as well. And it's somebody they're at CERN and they're in a building, so they're filming it through a glass, but they're looking out into that courtyard where Shiva is, and they you see these hooded people come out and they kind of stand around in like a circle, and then a a girl come takes her black hoodie off and she's in a nightgown and she goes and lays down in front of Shiva and this one another person in a black hood comes up with a knife and it's they've got that statue lit up so you can see the blade reflecting the light and everything and he looks like he stabs her
what?
so and that's what I'm saying they've never been super clear about what this footage actually was. They've gone back on it, I mean their main stance is that it's a hoax or a prank. I think they said it's a prank, but like they've never clarified it. So and okay, I can see that being a prank. That maybe some young college CERN kids did. But where it gets weird is CERN then on the public stage on in front of everybody goes on to put on this occult ritual with that same kind of vibe, right? For the opening ceremony of the Gothard Tunnel. That Gothard Tunnel ceremony that everybody talks about, that was put on by people at CERN.
Yep.
And it's weird. It's one of the weirdest things that we've seen as far as rituals go, televised rituals go, because that's clearly everybody gets weird vibes from that.
Yeah.
It's just soaking in occult ideology and stuff. And they had those 9 miners die when they built that tunnel. And they acknowledge those guys in the ceremony, but they do it in a super weird way.
Yeah.
Like their ghosts are like interacting with demons, and it's just so weird. But here's the thing: these people are supposedly atheists.
Right.
Behind all this, they're supposedly just atheists. And this is weird stuff coming from like a secular scientific group. So I think that they're into this stuff for real. The atheist thing just doesn't fit in
No,
with
not at
this.
all. No, I don't believe there's anything atheistic about it. I think they are purposefully, and I'm not calling them Nazis by any stretch of the imagination, but they're combining science and the occult to gain some kind of knowledge or whatever they're trying to
Yeah.
gain from this, trying to bring forth literal upside down shadow demons. It's like
Mhm.
I
I,
just
I,
can't get past the why, and I
yeah.
feel like a child, you tell them no and they're like, why? But
Well, I think that you're definitely onto something with that, combining science with the occult. Because behind the scenes, I think that's what they're doing.
yeah, man.
But they hide behind this like, oh, we're just atheists thing. Even Gordy Rose talks about how he admires Sam Harris.
Hmm.
Sam Harris is like one of the modern day faces of atheism. So, but then he goes on to talk about these extra dimensional gods.
Right.
So what gives? And so I wanted to know why too. So I went and I looked because I was like, I want to find what CERN actually believes. I want to like see if I can like cut open the actual belief system itself or just find it. So I went to their site and um and I found their mission statement basically, and I have it here. But like just just the fact that it seems to be built on atheism, but they acknowledge Shiva and they do these occult ceremonies, that alone tells me something's up. So that's why I didn't just when I read this, I didn't just take it for granted, right? Or face value. So if you go to their site, they had the a page that says it just says Higgs boson up top. And this is what CERN believes. They say, you and everything around you are made of particles. But when the universe began, the particles had no mass. They all sped around at the speed of light. Stars, planets, and life could only emerge because particles gained their mass from a fundamental field associated with the Higgs boson. The existence of this mass giving field was confirmed in 2012 when the Higgs boson particle was discovered at CERN. So when I read that, I was like, okay, this is a religion.
Yeah.
That to me says 50% mission statement, 50% new religion.
Yeah.
They're trying to re-explain God with that what does it say? That field that they're talking the particles gain their mass from a fundamental field
Hmm.
because they believe there's like this energy field out there
Right.
that all these particles. So that's that. I mean, I would call that God
You're right.
or evidence of God or remnants of God.
Right.
Personally,
Yeah.
it's their that's their myth, that's their doctrine, that's their worldview wrapped up into this cult of science kind of a viewpoint for me.
Because like I agree with you, man. It sounds like they're trying to create a new religion out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what they're fixated on this particle, but they're not fixated on where the particle come from. They're not fixated on the energy field. Where's that energy come from? Yeah, if that was
Yeah.
true,
And Higgs. Higgs was a guy they named this sparkle after.
Uh-huh.
Higgs was this like rich kid atheist whose dad worked at the BBC. They were major atheists. And the BBC has been pushing evolution on the culture for years.
Yeah, man.
So they named it after an atheist.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that tells you right there what they're
Trying to
how they're
do.
presenting this.
Yeah.
It's in the spirit of atheism.
Yeah.
They're trying to explain why we're here, and they're trying to explain the Big Bang. That's what this is all about, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And they don't want anything spiritual in their way. They don't want God in the mix. They don't want any of that. And that's why this gets so confusing for people like us who understand that there's a spiritual realm, because we're seeing them doing occult ceremonies and talking about giving homage to little g gods right
Right.
down to the statue in their courtyard, but yet they're ignoring the God
Right.
or the source of the little g gods and the
Right.
source of the energy field itself. And you said, combining science with the occult. That's what the idea of this energy field is for me that they're putting forward. You see that in esotericism throughout the millennia. This idea of an energy field is in all the old alchemical stuff.
Yep.
It's present in esotericism. So
Man.
I think it's God, and it's a remnant of God, and it's like a sentient, measurable intelligence. That field is somehow something God uses, or it's associated with God.
Yeah.
If it's even real, you know. So
Right. I feel like almost like the whole thing is a front for them. You know, they're trying to recreate the God particle or whatever, trying to prove it that it's a big bang. And that's what they're saying. That's what they're getting their funding from. But all the while, they're clearly trying to open a portal, open a dimension. And
and I think they are. They
yeah,
actively are. When you look at the Tony Merkel story, that's a good example. But there's another lady I came across who has come out. Now, here's the thing with these whistleblowers: some of them have been wiped off the face of the planet, and I would need another episode to go into that, because you have to go down like really, really dark, very well swept up rabbit holes when it comes to some of the CERN whistleblowers. But there is a lady over there. She's from the University of Geneva, and she's talking openly about this. Uh, and we can get to it in a second, but because I made a transcript of what she said in an interview. But she's
awesome.
saying that they are opening dimensions. It would back up, Merkel's story, and what a lot of people have theorized is going on too.
Yeah.
Um, I don't
Okay.
know if you had more you wanted to say. I didn't want to jump.
No, no, go take it away, man. Because all I'm going to do is throw out like 12-year-old theories,
Well,
theories of a
that's
12
but
year old.
that's but that's not. I wouldn't say you're doing that personally, but I mean, to approach this, for people out there listening, to approach this like a child would, is not a bad idea,
Right. That's
because
good.
we're getting programmed with bad ideas from all the adults.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of hit reset and approach this in as a child would. I think like you would approach the scripture, in a
Right.
way.
Yeah.
You
Believe in
want
magic for
discernment.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, you want discernment, but you also want that, just a childlike open mind,
Amen.
to kind of combat some of that programming, that bad programming, because that programming has been hitting us from all angles for our whole lives. BBC, for instance,
Yeah.
it's just all of it. And look, folks, I tell people on my show too, I'm not trying to sound like I'm coming down too hard on atheists or evolutionists. If that's what you believe, that's fine. I just want you to know that it's a theory that's been pushed on you. I want you to realize that it's just as provable as a religion is. It's not provable.
Right.
It's all faith at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But do know that you have been programmed to see the world through an evolutionist lens. But this lady, she is a doctor. She's an academic. Her name is Dr. Astrid Suckelberger. And here's what she said. Now, this lady, I'll just tell people right now, English is not her first language. So the wording might be weird, but it's just because she's from Switzerland. She says they are doing strange experiments at CERN. Beings are coming in and out of portals. Physicists at CERN have told me this. I met them at a dinner. There were two physicists, and both of them said that they had at the bottom of CERN a portal, a door, where they are dealing with the subatomic dimensions. They believe there are 17 different dimensions of reality, and they are playing with that, using that. And they had a being who came through which does not resemble a human. On another separate occasion, a being came through and left something resembling a scarf or like a piece of fabric. So this is coming from Dr. Stuckelberger. She's a scientist. She's a PhD from Switzerland. She went to the University of Geneva. If I didn't say that already, CERN is in Geneva, so she's a local. She's from the area, and she's an academic. So when I read that, I say, maybe drab Darwinian science is not just looking for new particles. Maybe there's something else going on here.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
That's the setup for me to get into the old God stuff, by the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Perfect setup. Perfect setup.
Because yeah, because I wanted to let people go down this journey of thinking about this before we jump right into the old gods.
Yeah.
Because I think for me at least, it made sense to me why the old gods might be involved once I knew all this other stuff that I just laid out. Once I pondered this other stuff.
Yeah.
Because it gets weirder because when you look at the old god aspect of this, it's like CERN is like perpetuating its own lore.
Yeah.
It's just it just points back to the ancient little g gods at every turn. Even the name CERN, I think, is somehow derived from Cernnunos. Cernnunos is this ancient corn god that was a god of the underworld, and there's not a whole lot known about it, so I had to really do some digging. I had to, uh, get my investigative journalist on for this one. But active pagan people, are worshiping this god, even though there's not a lot known about it. And so I could find it's interesting that it's still around, right? It's kind of relevant. The neo pagan people out here today, I found podcasts, man, where people are talking about how they're going out in the woods and worshiping this god, you know, currently. So thought that was interesting. But they say this is a Celtic god. But what I'm going to say today is that I think it goes back further, and I think it's directly connected to the title of CERN, because it is Cernnunos. We see Cernnunos in a few places. He shows up in ancient rock art from northern Italy. It's in a valley there called Val Camonica. We also see Cernunnos in an old Roman carving that's in Paris, France, which, if you remember, that's where CERN originated. Thought that was an interesting tie-in.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, if you look on a map, if I'm not gonna get up out of my seat and mess with the map right now. But if you look at a map, um, if you look at the one in Paris, France, and then you draw a line from that Cernunnos monument to the Cernunnos monument in the northern valley of Italy, your line goes right through an area called Lake Leman, where CERN is. Lake Leman is a lake that CERN sits on.
Oh.
It's right in the middle of these two Cernunnos monuments. So that made me think, it gave me a sense that maybe Cernunnos is an ancient god of the overall region where CERN sits.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, I found imagery, very interesting imagery of Cernunnos, that is the exact imagery used for another god called Pashupati from the Indus Valley. And what's interesting about that is that all the scholars say that Pashupati is definitely an early name for Shiva. So Cernunnos is Shiva.
Yeah.
It's just,
Wow.
what are the chances? I think I can actually show that the Shiva statue at CERN that everybody talks about is in fact Cernunnos.
Wow.
Um, and it's crazy, man. If you go and you trace Cernunnos from the Indus Valley in the Middle East, right? You you go back as far as you can with Cernunnos, and it goes back to this Indus Valley. Then you see him moving up through Thrace, which was an area where modern day Turkey is, where Istanbul is. It's a little strip of land that connects the Middle East to Europe. So you see him going from the Indus Valley near India
Mhm.
up through Turkey into Europe. Then you see him showing up here in northern Italy. Then he goes up past CERN into Paris. Then he goes up north and you see him in Denmark. By the time he gets to Denmark, he's become the Viking god, the Celtic god Cernnunos. He
Yeah.
changed names, but he comes from India because he's Shiva.
Wow. Dude, that's incredible. This is like,
Blew my mind.
yeah.
And the link there with, because these are little g gods and they go by different names. The link is Pashupati somehow. It's almost like different periods of time. It was just Shiva was just called something different, and one of those was Cernunnos.
Yep.
And then I got to thinking about it. Uh, I'll show you a picture here in a minute. Maybe I could. Should I show it now?
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool. I know this might slow us down, but it'll be worth it. Uh, I found, just to show you, man, what,
Want me to screen share?
yeah. Actually, let's see here. Might have to. Oh, I got it right here.
Okay.
Sorry, everybody, just hang with me.
Good.
I know I'm slowing us down a little bit, but
No, no, you're good, man.
uh, you got to see this.
Oh, wow.
You see the semblance?
Yes.
That's
Wow.
they're horned. Cernunnos has horns, just like Pashupati has horns. They're sitting in the same posture and they're surrounded by animals.
Yeah. And this is
Here's
one
another
is
one.
one is
This is
Celtic.
Yeah, yeah, and this is one of the old ones that links Shiva to Pashupati. And you see, he's got the horns there, and he's
Yeah.
sitting in that same posture, and there's animals.
What in the
So
world?
Shiva is Pashupati is Cernunnos in whatever order you want to put them in.
Yeah.
So
Dude, that's wild.
yeah,
You're
it
the
just it
man, bro.
it just makes.
Like, that's awesome.
Hey, listen, Lord, put stuff on my desk, man,
Yeah,
or put stuff across my eyes or something. I don't know how to say it, but like,
man.
uh, yeah, I think some of the I just let things get revealed to me through research. I'll just put it like that.
Yeah,
I think that the maybe the demonic goat man in that Gothard tunnel ceremony might be Cernunnos. And
yeah,
maybe they're like depicting like the journey of Cernunnos, or something
yeah,
like that. So whatever it is. I think they're acknowledging the underworld, the little gods of the underworld in that Gothard tunnel ceremony, and that's when you look at the nature of Shiva, Pashupati, and Cernunnos. They're It's all one god, but it's the god of the underworld.
and okay, and this is the same Polyon. Gary Wayne said is the equivalent to
Exactly.
Shiva too, right?
Bingo. Bingo. That's it. That's a new kind of a thing discovery for me. I haven't looked into that much, but apparently, and I've heard Gary Wayne talk about this, the Greek god Apollyon is the Hindu god Shiva.
Yeah,
So that would mean all these gods are Apollyon as well.
yeah,
And that would mean there's more significance to where CERN is, because not only do you have a statue of CERN in the courtyard, you have CERN, the residents of CERN, on the grounds, sharing the grounds with the old Roman temple to Apollyon.
yeah.
So there's real life connections to these gods. And CERN during construction had to stop digging because they hit Roman ruins and it was that temple. That's how they came across
What?
it. Yeah. Because do you remember earlier when I was reading in the Leah Broussard Oak Ridge article, it said they had a 50-foot tunnel.
Yeah.
It's underground. The tunnel at CERN is way bigger, so it covers more ground. So all, and we're talking about pits in the ground and all this. They were digging a pit in the ground, apparently where the Romans believed there was a bottomless pit, putting in these corridors for the particle collider.
Yeah.
So this place, it's just too on the nose,
So they're over the gate of hell,
according to the ancients,
trying to
according to the
summon
Romans.
trying to summon up Cernnunos, or at least doing this in homage of
Mm.
Cernnunos.
It's the Romans believed it to be a bottomless pit there, and that's why I thought of that Huska Castle story with the Nazis, because the Nazis sought that place out because of the bottomless pit. They wanted to do metaphysical types of occult technology rituals there. So it's like I had to ask the question, is that why CERN? Now they say they accidentally stumbled on these ruins of Apollyon Temple, but what if somebody knew they were there and
Oh
they
yeah,
didn't stumble on them? You
yeah,
know,
yeah. You don't just happen to be on the same spot.
there's a lot of there's a lot to this uh putting uh like CERN being, the modern day center for science, right? And then putting it on an old temple. There's something to that. It's like Hermon. It's like where the UN has their base on top of Mount Hermon. That's
Yeah,
another old temple site.
yeah,
Jesus did the transfiguration there
right,
because Jesus claimed victory over the old pagan temples and belief system. That's why he went there. And of course, it's the touchdown spot of the Watchers.
right. That's what I was gonna say too. Yeah, that's
But Jesus picks these places symbolically because he's showing you that he's claimed victory over all these other religions. And this, but our secular institutions love these temple sites. That's what I guess I'm trying to say.
right.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, just to circle back to something we said earlier, that this site, this Temple of Apollyon, it's just almost too much. It's too on the nose. It very well could be that Apollyon, abandoned site mentioned in Revelation 9:11, especially since the Romans said there's a pit there, and the Bible says there's a pit there.
Yeah, man.
So Apollyon is an entity, probably Cernnunos, who is locked in the earth essentially because of the Genesis 6 stuff or associated with that. And we know he gets out in Revelation.
Yeah,
So the question is, regardless of Genesis 6, the question is does CERN play a part in the unlocking of this old ancient entity's prison?
yeah. Like it has to happen. Like
Hmm.
this is how it happens.
Hmm. I mean, and another thing, like I think I just need to talk about it because this is kind of weird too. Them building these temples on, or them building stuff on temples is like it's not a new concept at all. Because like even with if you look at places like London,
Mhm.
London was an ancient city of Londinium. It was an old Roman city that dates back to like I think they say 43 to 50 AD. But before that, it was before it became the ancient city of Londinium, it was a Roman temple to Mithras. So the pagan cult and temple of Mithras predates, it was there, and they built the city of London around it.
What?
And in recent years, they were doing construction in London to build a new office building, and they uncovered remnants of this temple to Mithras that dates back to like 240 AD. So the pagan temple predates the city, but it's like they formed everything around the temple, and then Michael Bloomberg swooped in and he bought the land that the temple sits on and he decided to make it his grand headquarters. So you see what's at play here with these elites picking these spots to put their centers and their institutions on. They want access to the sacred spots. Bloomberg 100% wanted the spot because there was an ancient temple there.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is in the heart of the banking sector of London. This is the center of finance for Europe. CERN is no different. Center of science. They're the center of finance. And if I mean you look at Bloomberg, man, like he just he's liberal, he's Harvard, he's associated with John Hopkins in the pandemic. He was the mayor of New York City for a little while. He's in the top 20 richest people in the world, or he was at one point. He's a major player on the global stage, and his headquarters is on top of this temple. Right next to him is the Rothschilds building. That I don't think that these are coincidences.
No way. There's no way it's a coincidence.
And when you watch these people in interviews, they tell you what they're into.
Yeah.
They tell you with the Gothard Tunnel. Uh, Jordy Rose tells you they let stuff slip. It's like Obama. He did that interview with like this college girl where he had like an old God statue in his pocket. He's in the interview and he's like he tells the girl he's like, yeah, I carry around these charms in my pocket, and he pulls out one of them and it's Hanuman, the Hindu god that is an incarnation of Shiva. That's on YouTube too.
Man.
So he tells you in the interview, he pulls it out, he shows the little statue to the girl. This is Obama. And he goes, yeah, it's Hanuman. I looked it up and it's Shiva. So they tell you, man, you know.
Of course. It's like when Hillary Clinton made that really distasteful joke. And she's like,
Mm,
yeah, we're sacrificing, what she say, children or chickens? I think she said children. Yeah, we're sacrificing children to Moloch in our backyard. Ha ha ha.
yeah.
And it's like, I bet you are. You know
Yeah.
what I mean,
Yeah.
man?
Yeah.
Like,
Biden did the same thing. He's like, they think we drink children's blood.
yeah,
Joking. You know,
yeah,
air quotes, joking.
yeah.
Um,
Man, I really think you uncovered this, man. Like,
well, I was I think something has been uncovered here. You know, no, especially no pun intended with these old sites because so I'm thinking like, all right, London is on Mithras, CERN is on Apollo, the Vatican is sits on an ancient temple to Jupiter that was built by these people called the Etruscans. They were like a sorcerer group.
uh-huh.
Like Rome, Italy was not built by Romans, it was built by Etruscans. They were occultists for sure. And I've heard Gary Wayne talk about this too. The Etruscans apparently had a god called CERN, just straight up CERN, not Cernnunos. So I think if we trace that Cernnunos from the Indus Valley, once he makes his way up into Northern Europe and into Italy, the Etruscans worshipped him as CERN.
Wow.
And guess what? For them, he was a liaison to the underworld. And all of these places have these city-state borders. London, that banking sector of London has its own like DC has, like DC, we have uh they're hard to prosecute or regulate because they have special borders.
All right.
You see it with DC, you see it with London in the financial sector, you see it with CERN, they have these borders too, and you see it with the Vatican. These are the four power centers of the world. And they're all on ancient temples, except maybe for DC. I don't know,
Who
but
knows
they're
what DC's on?
well. I haven't found that yet, but the our Capitol building, we call it the Capitol. We got that from the Etruscans because when the Etruscans called their temple to Jupiter in Rome, the Capitol, because when they built it, they and I haven't been able to discredit this story. I've heard it from scholars. When they built the temple, the Etruscans cut people's heads off and used them for divination, and they put the heads in the foundations of the temple. So
Oh,
it became known as decapitolate, decapitate.
wow.
Fast forward to Jefferson building our Capitol building, they chose to call it Decapitol
Wow.
after this temple of Jupiter. So there's that.
Man, you know who would love this conversation?
Who's
Just
that?
Justin from Appalachian Intelligence.
We'll get him on, man. We could
Dude,
all three of us can chop it up.
he had this big theory about the old gods being trapped under the mountains of Appalachia.
Hmm.
And here you got Oak Ridge under the mountains of Appalachia doing the same work that CERN is doing, working with the old gods over there.
Hmm.
There's a horned feathered serpent deity in our area that was worshipped, and I can't think of what its name may have been, but somebody's probably screaming it when they're listening to this right now. I wish I could think of its name.
Is it Amaru?
Nope.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Amaru is this chimeric horned something. Sometimes it's a serpent, sometimes it's like some other animal that dates back to the Native Americans, probably before them. But a lot of people have theorized that America is named after Amaru, which is this horned entity that specifically comes from North America. But anyway, just go ahead. That's all I had with that.
It says, I'm looking it up, and it says like the Uctina. That's not the one I was trying to think of. That the name, but it's a Algonquin myth that the great horned serpent ruled the underworld. So I wonder if there's supposed to be some kind of
There's a
portal.
tie in there for sure,
A
because
portal to here in Appalachia. Maybe that's like the other reason for doing this kind of stuff. Because all these old temples, all these old sites, we got we got mounds and stuff here that people said was, like when they credited it to the Native Americans, but the Native Americans were like, no, this was here when we got here. This come from the people before, that they just coined the Adena people or the Hopewell people, the mound builders. They didn't have any other names for them. But it was ancient, and they built sites on top of those sites, just like this, in these more, I guess more, I don't want to say advanced, but these other areas, like the Vatican, London. Well, the untamed wilderness of Appalachia
yeah,
had the same kind of stuff going on, man. Just in a different
yeah.
culture.
I'm trying to remember, Bo, whether it's a Bible verse or it's a verse in Enoch, but there's a verse that specifically says, when the Watchers, after they came down to Mount Hermon, and after they gave technology to the men of Earth in exchange for the daughters, after that whole deed was done, their punishment, when it goes into talking about their punishment, it says that they were locked in the hills of Earth. I think something worded that way.
Wow.
But it says they were locked in the hills or the mountains of Earth. So the way it sounds is like they weren't locked up in one particular place. They were put under mountains that could have, it could have been a mountain in North America. It could have been a mountain in South Africa. They could have spread them out and put them under major mountain ranges, is what I'm saying.
Oh, absolutely. I could believe that.
I'll have to find it. There's a verse that talks about that though.
Yeah.
And that always made me think that maybe there really is something locked up down here in our hills and hollers.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Wow.
And yeah, but again, Jesus has claimed victory over this. That's why he picked the mountain that he did. There's a Mount Hermon, man. There's a temple to Pan down there. Pan is associated with Cernnunos as well. They're both horned gods.
Yep.
And they there's a goat element sometimes they're depicted with, which
Yep.
that would tie in Azazel as well. And there are people who think that Azazel is Apollyon.
Same. Same here.
Yeah. I lean more towards it being maybe Semyaza, but
Yep.
uh either way, there's all these connections are there
Yeah. They're
with
all these horned goat looking things anyway.
yeah. And I heard I think Gary Wayne might actually think that Azazel is Apollyon or Abaddon in the Book of Revelation, but I heard him speculating about this temple at CERN, and I want to say that he thinks it's a portal site for that sits on like ley lines,
Uh-huh.
that was probably being used for geomancy, where like warlocks would come to this region and create portals between two worlds. So there's like that, like a Tower of Babel
Yep.
tie-in with this location. If you look at Babel, I think it's in the Akkadian. It's something like Babalu or something like that. It's the word means like portal or gateway to the gods.
Of course.
Because so like in the Babel story, it's like it makes sense to me that that's the case because God says something along the lines of, whatever they put their minds to do, they would be able to do.
Yeah.
It's like they manifested, or maybe not manifest. It's like they had some sort of a technology that was going to allow them to be able to manifest and
Yeah.
do whatever was on their minds.
Yeah.
And God had to shut it down. And it's like they were on this highway to hive mind, which it seems like we're on today. It's like that old tech meeting the new tech with these stories. That's what's happening here, I think. If you span out, I think these old temple sites represent old tech that we're stepping into an era to where it's going to be brought back like the days of Noah. That's what I think is happening here. I think it's CERN is just going to be a new Tower of Babel, along with AI and one world government and the science religion that we broke down.
Yeah.
I, it's all coming back to the days of Noah, and that Jesus made that prophecy. He said something along the lines of, "They will be like the days of Noah in the
Yeah.
end times,"
Exactly what he said.
and I think he was referring to the technologies
Man.
and like the little just or the activities, the greater activities of the little g gods, what's included technologies and chimeras and all the DNA manipulation and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yep. And just living for corruption.
Hmm.
Uh, and think real metaphorically, today with science trying to deny God is trying like to kill out the idea of God is so in line with the Watchers trying to kill out the Messianic bloodline, trying to stop God. It's still the same thing, man. Still the same bad guys, same bad
Hmm.
intent.
And yeah, it's the same war
Yeah.
going on. We're just in a different phase of that war. I found another weird tie-in with this. I'm see if I can explain this, but I just want to toss it in because we are talking about Pan, and which is there's a temple to Pan at the base of Mount Hermon. Pan's a woodland god. I don't know if I've used that term yet, but Cernnunos is a woodland god. So is Shiva. So, we talked about Cernnunos being Apollyon, right? That Gary Wayne, though he said, is that what Gary Wayne said? See, this stuff gets so dense now. I'm getting confused.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
said Shiva and
Shiva.
Apollyon.
That's right. That's right. So Apollyon was the god of the underworld who's released in Revelation, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's Shiva, maybe that's Cernunnos, and maybe there's some Pan connections, which made me wonder because there's this weird part. Now this is weird, but I know where I'm at. I'm on the Bump Podcast, so I'm gonna go for it.
Yeah, you'd be
Uh,
weird, man.
yeah. So I found this part in the Babylon Working that we know Jack Parsons did out in the desert. Uh, I believe he was talking directly to Ishtar, I think she's another one of these gods, goes by many names. One of her names is Babylon,
Hmm.
goddess Babylon. So Jack Parsons is talking to the goddess Babylon, and he's scrying. So he's writing all this down, and he's connected to the other side, and he writes this down, and he wrote down that the working that he did, the Babylon working, is going to be of 9 moons. It's the Astarte working. Astarte is another name for Ishtar. It's the Astarte working with music, feasting, with wine, and all arts of love. Let her be dedicated, consecrated, blood to blood, heart to heart, mind to mind, single in will. And she shall wander in the witch wood under the night of Pan, and know the mysteries of the goat and the serpent, and of the children that are hidden away. And I believe that this is the primordial goddess Ishtar possibly talking to Jack Parsons and giving him a message. And it reeks of eschatology. It sounds like she's talking about a prophecy concerning what we would consider to be the prophecy of the end times to me. Because I'm like, okay, there's that part where she's going to be loosed on the earth. I think I'm after 9 moons because of what Parsons did out there in the desert. Ishtar was to come to the west and be released on the earth. And she's saying she will wander in the witchwood under the night of Pan and know the mysteries of the goat and the serpent and the children that are hidden away. So I was like, is CERN associated with that night of Pan? Is Azazel the goat she's talking about? Is Nakash, because she says the serpent, is that Nakash who starts the seed war? And are the because she has this one line, she goes, the mysteries of the children that are hidden away. And I was like, is that the Watchers? Are they the children who are hidden away? And is this referring to some sort of a final showdown in the book of Revelation where Ishtar shows back up as Babylon? And that's way out there, guys. So forgive me, but it just made me think about all this stuff because she's going to be around when that bottomless pit opens up, I believe.
Yep. Yep. And that,
And I
that don't
don't
even
suggest
sound way out there, man. That sounds like it just goes into end times prophecies. It sounds like,
that's what it felt like.
yeah,
That's what it felt like. It sounds like she's referring to some sort of a lead up or some sort of an incident surrounding the Revelation 9/11, the Abaddon Apollyon opening up,
yeah,
which I do think CERN is connected with. So it's just a nerdy tie-in, and it's weird, but
man.
I think that the modern jump in technology that we're currently finding ourselves immersed in is a sign. And it's a sign that we're on this collision course with the old gods.
Yeah. Collision course, right? The
Hmm.
collider.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, or tech sorcery, right?
Yeah, man.
But
Dude,
it comes
keep
out of
going.
the 40s, it comes out of World War II. It's mysterious how it shows up. Nobody knows how the Nazis came across this stuff. But everywhere you turn these days, this tech is advancing around us, and it it's a part of everything we do, everyday life.
Yeah.
I think I think Oak Ridge and CERN are just an example of how weird this is potentially going to get.
Yeah, buddy. I agree. And this could have something to do. I mean, if these things are coming out of portals, if these entities, a scarf of all things, something that looked like a scarf was left.
Hmm.
So, okay, is there a seamstress over there on some other port? You know what I mean? Like, what is
Yeah.
that? What? And where's the remnant? Where's that material at that
Hmm.
was left behind? I want to see these things, but
There's
like,
a
does this explain like the uptick in cryptids that people are claiming to see?
mhm.
Are these things coming through? Are they for how long? There's just so much, man.
Well, Oak Ridge is a good example of that. The cryptids element
Yeah.
here, because the cryptids are off the charts out there.
Yeah.
They've got it all. I mean, I'm not too far from there, but Dogman, Bigfoot, Shadow Man.
Yep.
Yeah, and like that, I think she was talking about some sort of garb, like maybe some sort of a fabric, some sort of a scarf. Because if you go real deep into like Fortean research or like John Keel research, a lot of these old, especially UFO encounters, they're wearing similar stuff. They're like humanoids that have an outfit or a uniform. There's always like tight fitting, plastic looking,
Yep.
they have some sort of a fabric to their clothing, I guess.
That's wild, man.
Hmm. I
Bro.
mean, Oak Ridge is like the Area 51 of Tennessee.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
That's why I wanted to throw it in this today, because it's like it kind of backs up what's going on at CERN in a weird way. And just, I mean, even that whole area of Oak Ridge, there in the 1800s, there was a guy living there. They ended up calling him the prophet of Oak Ridge. I think his name is John Hendricks, I think. But the locals tried to lock him up in a barn because they thought he was crazy. But he was going around the town there, Clinton or something. I think that's the town. But he was going around telling people that the valley of Oak Ridge was one day going to be a city. It would, and it would happen like overnight. And this was right at the turn of the century, right? In the early 1900s. And then, 40 years later, that's what happened, because overnight in Oak Ridge, there were 75,000 people living there in World War II, because they were working on the bomb. And this guy predicted it, but this guy also said that he went up in a craft and was given visions of that valley and what would become of that valley where Oak Ridge sits today.
Wow.
It's just beneath the surface of Oak Ridge. It's always been weird.
Yeah. Bro, that's wild, man. That's wild.
Yeah.
I had never heard of that. That's awesome, man.
And they, Oak Ridge, well, yeah, I'll throw this in because this is kind of weird. When I first started my podcast, I told you, I think I told you, like right before I started, I had a UFO encounter. So my first 8 or 9 episodes, man, I went super hard into UFOs because I was fresh off of this encounter, and I just just started looking into random UFO incidents, and I came across one from Delphos, Kansas. I think it was 1971, where there's like this teenager on a farm. He's out late doing his chores, and a craft comes down and it hovers over the yard there. I think family came out and saw it too, but before the craft took off, it like ejected a mist at the bottom. It spewed out some sort of substance, and it left a glowing ring on the ground.
Yep.
It was there for days. It glowed for days. So people from all over came out to see this. Um, and then when that glow faded, the spot of soil, nothing would grow there. It just stayed dehydrated or something. But so they took a soil sample of that and they sent it to Oak Ridge in the 70s. And Oak Ridge got real weird with them. They wouldn't tell them what it was. They wouldn't give the sample back.
Ah,
Oak Ridge sent them a letter eventually saying that, oh, our project changed management. We can't, they told them we can't study this because our project changed management, but they wouldn't send the soil samples back or anything. So
right.
I was like, what? So there's UFO stuff being sent to these places with particle colliders. Like, what is that about? And like under the Department of Energy was involved at that time in the 70s with Oak Ridge. So
Right.
there's a there's a lot of weirdness with that too. I mean, I won't go into all of it, especially this late in the program, but like there is another one of these weird interviews out where the head of the Department of Energy was talking to Chelsea Handler, and he said flat out that they work with other dimensions. That's on YouTube too. So like you gotta wonder like what's really happening here behind the scenes.
Yeah, man.
Stranger Things, bro.
It is. It is. It's the upside down.
Hmm.
Dude, I don't even know where to go from here.
Yeah.
You blew my mind, man. I'm glad I didn't attempt to do any research because I would not have gotten where you got. You know,
You'd be surprised. I don't sell yourself short, man. You've blown my mind with research, man. Some of that stuff with Lilith that you were able to uncover is some of the best research, man. I mean, it's top notch, top shelf, brother.
thank the Lord for that, man. I, but to unlock things like Revelation, uh, dude, that's wild, and it just makes sense. You know, you've made sense of what's happening in real world time with what is to come in biblical prophecy. It's like people are worried about the red heifers.
Mm-hmm.
Quit worrying about the red heifers. Look at CERN. You know what I mean? It's like this is
Yeah. There's all kinds of telltale signs here
yeah,
that we might be in what Jesus talked about in one of his parables. He was talking about the fig tree generation. He said, because no man's going to know the time or the hour,
yep,
but that doesn't mean that we won't know the time is near. That's why I don't ever tell anybody the time is here, is upon us. I say, if anything, it looks like maybe the time is near, right? Because we just don't know. But Jesus said, you will know, you won't be in summer yet, but you'll know that that season is upon you if you look at the fig tree, because you'll see the buds starting to appear on the branches. He's talking about just looking at the signs, the little signs. There's a lot of these little signs. There's the heifer, because man, they've been talking about that.
yeah,
Uh, there's that's going to kick off the building of the third temple. There's these weird entities in bottomless pits where we have CERN. There's the UN base on top of Mount Hermon, which is one of the most significant places for this whole spiritual war, especially as it pertains to the end times.
yeah,
You've got the Watcher curse in the book of Enoch, Enoch 10:12. Um, God has the archangel Michael lock up Semyaz and the Watchers in the earth for 70 generations. And it seems to be, if you it if you look at it, it's like, if a generation is 70 years, judging by Psalms 90:10, and you take 70 times 70, that's 4,900 years.
yeah,
The curse was placed in the time of Jared, which was 4,900 years ago.
yeah.
There's just a ton of little that you got to dig deep to find this stuff, but it's there.
It's there, man. Well,
Not
this
to
is
not
it.
to not to do that whole that watcher. I think I lost people with that one probably the first time, because the math it's hard to explain over a podcast.
It's like that meme with all the conspiracy stuff, and he's sitting there trying to explain it to his friends. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh, that's. But this is for those in Christ, this could be an exciting time. Um, for those not, this could be a warning bell. You
Mhm.
know, looks like it's shaking out, man. Uh,
Yeah, I think now is a good time for people to have a good look at what we think we know concerning these end times. Now, what I do, I don't base any of this stuff on something I've heard somebody else say. I wanted when God put it on my heart in like 2020 to do my own research and to look for answers and to just see where that goes. So I'm not basing this off of anything like some other guy's work or whatever. So because I don't want to keep if we've been told wrong information, I don't want to keep perpetuating wrong information.
right.
And I don't know, man, it just reminded me of this thing I saw today where it's like, and I was going to ask you about this. It was like a reel that JT put out. JT follows JC,
Mhm.
and he was talking about how he thinks that everybody's perspective on the end times was skewed because of what's the name of the book series that came out, and it's a movie. Do you know what I'm talking about? James Cameron. No, it's not James Cameron. What was the popular book series put out about the end times?
Uh, Left Behind.
Left Behind. He was talking about how he thinks that that was wrong,
Yeah.
or there was a lot of wrong ideas in there, and how it's like messed people's idea of this all up. And it just, I don't know, man. Like, what do you think about that?
Buddy, I don't know.
But I will say this too. I don't think those guys believe in a rapture.
Right.
So that's part of it probably for them.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, that goes into the pre-trib, post-trib rapture debate or mid-trib. Uh, the jury's still out for me on that.
Hmm.
I've made comments before, and I had people message me about, oh, you're pre-trib, man. That's great to hear. And but if you read on it, it says like those who endure to the end, and there'll be a time where people will beg for the mountains to fall on them because of the tribulations that they're going through. Um, so that opens the door to post tribulation rapture or the kingdom. I don't know. All I
Hmm.
know is,
Hmm.
you know, to think simply, to try to get right and stay right with the Lord, and whatever comes, comes. I look at it like in Psalm 91, it says, "A thousand may fall at my side and 10,000 at my right hand, but it won't approach me. I'll look on with my eyes. I'll see the recompense of the wicked." Like
Hmm.
you'll see the wicked be punished. That's what recompense means. They get their, what's justly coming to them.
Hmm.
And a thousand can fall here and 10,000 there, but it's not going to hurt us. Now, does that mean that we will be able to endure through through the tribulation period, or does that mean that we'll see it, but we won't be involved in it? I don't know. Either way, it seems like we're going to be taken care of. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, maybe those guys were saying that those who were taken were taken out to a field to die or to be eaten by vultures or something like that. That whatever they were saying, I got the sense that they didn't believe that they were being taken by to through the sky. They
Right.
weren't being taken by a rapture. They thought it means something else.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean that's I think and that was, man, you nailed it. That really gave me something to think about. Your answer there. That's pretty good. Uh, but I think that maybe what I'm getting at here is, are the movies about this stuff have maybe given us some wrong ideas.
Hmm.
Movies, books, because I grew up in church, and a lot of times during the summer I would go to these church camps,
Yeah.
and they would show these wacky movies about
Right.
people getting decapitated and all this and that. And I think it was like a fear campaign that they wanted to scare you into becoming a Christian or something.
Yeah. Yeah. They say scare the hell out of you. So they
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
like,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
man.
well, I just wonder how much of that stuff that we've seen in media, even if it's put out by Christians who mean well, I just wonder how much of that stuff is not correct.
Right.
And I don't know. That's where I'm at. I'm just trying to I'm just trying to look at it with new eyes.
Yeah, man.
Spirit led, but with new eyes.
Amen. Amen. That's the way to go with it,
Hmm.
because the Lord will reveal it. It says, "Seek and you shall find; knock and it'll be answered." It'll be open
Hmm.
to you. So,
But this technology thing, I think, is another one of those signs. I really do.
no, too, man.
I mean, unprecedented technology leaps is, and I think last time I was on, I talked about 1947,
Yep.
and you see that circuitry and fiber optics coming out of there. Some people think they pulled that tech right out of the desert right after Roswell.
Yeah.
I don't know. Either way, it comes out of 47, and where you have the Nazis integrating with all their tech, the Nazis with this CERN tech, the Nazis, they did the bomb. They had tech that has totally sent ripples throughout the future,
Yeah.
and it's just those computer chips come out of this circuitry and stuff, and like but the origins of it are just so mysterious. That's what I have a hard time wrapping my mind around. It's like there's something almost supernatural about the way that technology has been revealed to us
Yeah.
over the last decade. No, more than a decade. That plus since the 40s, you know?
Yeah. Just this explosion of technology.
Yeah. Because those computer chips, I think it's cool when people like kind of show the similarities between the chips and the sigils
Yeah,
from the
that blew my
old
mind when I saw that.
magic. Because those chips use zeros and ones. This is what we're told. They use
Yeah.
like an 8 binary sequence of
Yeah.
zeros and ones. And one of those 8 binary sequences forms a byte, what we call a byte. Somehow we're able to record videos and send files by stringing zeros and ones together. It's magic.
Yeah. It
It's
makes
magic.
makes zero sense. You know what I mean, man? Like
How
it
are
makes
how are
zero
we
sense.
how are we manipulating zeros and ones right now to have this conversation where we're basically in person? In
Right.
real time, we're talking over a screen, a black mirror, like the guys used to scry from back in the day.
Yep. I think about that all the time, man. Like I don't even like my phone to sit there with the screen off. You know what I mean? Like I won't look dead at it. I make sure I hit the I don't like it. Uh maybe I'm
It's linking us more and more intimately with technology.
yeah,
By the hour. It's technology like by the day.
yeah,
It feels like it's by the hour sometimes, but just by the day, we're becoming more and more intimate with this technology.
yeah.
And if nothing else today, I just at least want to shine some light on that because just think about it, like you don't want to wake up one day fully immersed in some psyop that's directed at you through this technology if we can help it.
That's good. That's plenty to
Yeah, that's a
think
lot.
on, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Dude. Whew.
Hopefully
Another
that
great
wasn't too much.
conversation, man.
Okay. Hopefully that
No,
wasn't too much of a information dump on everybody.
no, man. This is great. And if it's too much at one time, then pause it, get
Mm,
out your pad of paper, write you some notes, research it as you go along as you listen to it. You don't have to listen to this all in one swath. Um, there's shows that I've had to play and replay because I want to pick out more of it.
yeah, me too.
And there's plenty to chew on with this, man. I've absolutely loved this, and you've opened my eyes to a lot. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart, man, for being patient with me on the rescheduling because I messed that up so bad. The guy that I sent the email to that I said I'm going to have to reschedule last week, he never replied. So he's probably thinking like, who is
Oh man, it happens. We worked it out. It's no big deal.
yeah, like I typed in your first name instead of just your email, and it popped up, and I didn't think twice. I just click. Oops, my bad. But
We
brother,
we we got to send out the message though, real quick before we get off here. You
yeah.
send out a message to that guy, the guy you mentioned earlier. He needs to come on your show and tell his story.
Oh yeah, man.
And
I
I'm gonna add an additional message here to Justin from AI. Come on my show, come on Bo's show, or we'll all get together and we'll do one show and let's hash it out over some Appalachian stuff.
yes, yes, Justin, please, please. I just checked on him about a week ago, man. I told him I'm going to drop in on him where he's pastoring a church now, and he said if I come down, he'll take me out for lunch or whatever or for supper. So I'll probably take him up on it. Yeah, I'll holler at him, man, because I don't know if the poor guy even has a chance to listen to shows anymore, but if he does, yeah,
Mhm.
Justin, please come sit with us. Let's do a round table on this, man.
Yeah, people love to hear from him.
You wouldn't
I
believe the
know they
amount of
would.
emails that I get addressed to them. It's like
Hmm.
I know that we talked a lot with each other, or we played each other's shows a couple of years ago, but they're like, hey man, it's like we're next door neighbors or something, go
Hmm.
tell Justin to come talk on the show. I'm like, well, I'll try.
Yeah. Yeah, man. If we did a round table, I'll kick back and I'll shut up. I won't do like I did today where I'll let you boys do some talking. I'll do some learning for sure.
Hey buddy, you're the brains here. So,
Nah, well, there's a similar thread, and I'll
there,
I'll shut up after this. There's a similar thread to my research, your research, and then some of the stuff I heard those boys talking about on AI.
yeah,
There's connective tissue for sure
yeah,
because this all goes back to these old gods. But then I'll leave it at that.
yeah. It's on, man. Well, I want you to have a good night. Thank you again for coming on. God bless you. And please holler at me. Let's do this again, brother.
All right, brother. We'll do it again. Thanks for having me. My podcast is Sixth Sensory Podcast, by the way.
Yes,
If
I
anybody,
led with that in the open, but
cool.
yes, six sensory podcast. Awesome.
All right, man. God bless you, bud. We'll talk soon.
All right, brother. Good night.
Night.